Number 10. Subway kicker. In 2021, the NYPD released surveillance footage of a man drop-kicking a woman down a subway station escalator and calmly walking away. The footage shows the perpetrator pushing his way past the victim at the Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center stop in Brooklyn. He then suddenly turned around and put his foot straight to her chest, sending her tumbling all the way to the bottom of the moving stairs. In a classic example of a New Yorker telling it like it is, the 32-year-old woman explained to ABC 7 News that she told a man to say "excuse me" and that it's the New York way. He reportedly said, "I did," then turned around, kicked her, and carried on with his day. The victim was injured, but she declined medical attention. She said that the incident traumatized her and that she was left covered in cuts and bruises. With help from the public, police identified the suspect as 32-year-old Bradley K. Hill and charged him with assault as well as attempted assault. Number 9. Angry arsonist. Firefighters in Del City, Oklahoma, responded to a call about a burning residence one day in 2019 and arrived to find the home of Christopher Bottoms fully engulfed in flames. As they worked to extinguish the blaze, neighbor Annie Durham told local news station KFOR that the home was a drug house. She said that she learned of the fire when she saw smoke coming from the residence. The fire completely destroyed the house and everything in it. Investigators soon learned that Bottoms and Durham were entangled in a years-long conflict and that their contentious relationship had even landed them in court a few times. By then, Durham had given different stories of her whereabouts when the fire broke out, claiming in one version that she wasn't even home. After noticing that she had a surveillance camera on the outside of her house, detectives asked her for the footage, but she was suspiciously reluctant to hand it over, claiming that the camera was turned off at the time. However, the police got their hands on the video, which showed Durham firing 2 shots into Bottom's house. She then returned inside briefly and came back out with a flaming rag, which she threw directly into a doorway. She was consequently charged with second-degree arson for the crime. Speaking with KFOR, Bottoms acknowledged that the feud between him and Durham went both ways, and that he wasn't always the best neighbor. And while he never thought Durham would go as far as she did, he said that he forgave her. Bottoms also admitted to struggling with addiction and having shady guests in and out of his home over the years. After suddenly becoming homeless due to the fire, he checked himself into rehab. Number 8. Family abducted at gunpoint. In September of 2022, a family of 4 vanished without a trace in Merced, California. Included among the missing were 27-year-old Jasleen Kaur, her partner 36-year-old Jasdeep Singh, the couple's infant and the baby's uncle, 39-year-old Amandeep Singh. Sheriff's deputies first learned of their disappearance after discovering Amandeep's truck on fire, and they received a report from concerned family members who were unable to get in touch with the victims. Surveillance footage from the family's trucking business showed an armed man ushering the adult male victims into a pickup truck with their hands bound behind their backs. Moments later, he forced Jasleen Kaur and her child into the vehicle and drove away. Nothing appeared to be stolen from the business, ruling out robbery as a motive. Relatives of 48-year-old Jesus Manuel Salgado told authorities that he had admitted to being involved in the kidnapping. By the time police went to his home to apprehend him, he had attempted to take his own life. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Shortly after Salgado's arrest, a farmhand discovered the victim's remains in a remote almond orchard roughly 30 miles, 48 kilometers from where they disappeared. Family members told investigators that Salgado was a former employee of their trucking business and that they were embroiled in a long-standing dispute that had gotten pretty ugly. Salgado now faces 4 counts of first-degree murder. His brother, Albert Salgado, was also arrested in connection with the horrific crime, but law enforcement has not disclosed the nature of his alleged role in it. Number 7. Doorbell camera abduction. Las Vegas police were baffled on New Year's Day in 2020 when a resident's doorbell camera captured footage of a woman in ripped clothing running up to their porch in the middle of the night. She banged frantically on the door while looking over her shoulder at a car in the road. Moments later, a man emerged from the vehicle and sprinted over to her. He grabbed a woman by her hair and threw her onto the ground. He then proceeded to kick her in the abdomen before sending her tumbling down the porch steps. The man can be heard ordering her to get in the car as he tried pulling her off the ground. He asks her, "Why would you do that?" as he yanked her to her feet and continued to yell at her. The woman pleaded with her attacker to stop as he dragged her back to the car and drove away. The footage picked up audio of the woman calling the man Darius, but the homeowner didn't recognize the pair, and neither did the police, who appealed to the public for help identifying the people in the video. Various tips led them to 23-year-old Darnell Rogers. According to an arrest report, Rogers and his girlfriend were driving home from a New Year's Eve party with their child in the back seat when they began to argue. It became heated, so the woman pulled over and ran to the house for help. Rogers told police that he was drunk at the time and said that he was worried about his girlfriend leaving him. He pleaded guilty to coercion and domestic battery and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. In deciding his punishment, the judge considered the wishes of the victim, Taryn Kuyar, who asked for leniency. By then, the couple had broken up, but still had a child together, and Kuyar claimed that Rogers was a changed man and was an outstanding father. Number 6. Manhattan Jewelry Heist. In what's been described as a Hollywood-style robbery, a trio of thieves held up a high-end Manhattan jewelry store in broad daylight in 2019 and made off with $4 million worth of stolen goods. The three stylishly dressed bandits went to Avian & Co., where celebrities like Justin Bieber and Nicki Minaj are known to shop, posing as customers who were interested in buying rings. After being buzzed inside and pretending to shop for a few minutes, they pulled guns on the employees and bound them with zip ties and duct tape. They then proceeded to fill a duffel bag with jewelry from around the store. The workers managed to free themselves after the robbers fled and were thankfully uninjured. Surveillance footage captured during the heist was clear enough for police to identify 2 of the 3 suspects using facial recognition technology. Authorities captured 27-year-old Pedro Davia in Pasco County, Florida, a few weeks after the robbery. They apprehended 39-year-old Jay Sean Sutton at a hotel in North Carolina the following month. While details about the outcomes of the cases involving Davia and a third unnamed suspect remain vague, Sutton pleaded guilty to the robbery and is due to be sentenced in November of 2022. He faces up to 14 years in federal prison for the crime. Number 5. Kidnapped on camera. 22-year-old Carlesha Freeland Gaither was walking home in Philadelphia one night in 2014 when a stranger snatched her off the street and forced her into his car. Harrowing footage of the abduction showed the young woman trying desperately to fight off her kidnapper as he overpowered her. During the struggle, she dropped her glasses and phone on the sidewalk, and they were left behind. A multi-state manhunt ensued over the next few days as leads began to trickle in. The first clue to Carlesha's whereabouts came when a man used her ATM card in Aberdeen, Maryland. Soon after that, a woman living in nearby Havre de Grace found a bag containing garbage and a receipt in her driveway. Sensing that it might have something to do with the case, she reported the discovery. Surveillance footage from the store listed on the receipt confirmed that the suspected kidnapper had been there. In the meantime, ATF agents who were investigating the suspect for other reasons recognized his car in the video of Carlesha's abduction and identified him as 37-year-old Delvin Barnes. They tracked Barnes through a GPS device that was installed on his car due to his bad credit and arrested him in a parking lot. At the time, he was under suspicion for kidnapping another young woman. He took a plea deal and admitted to both crimes in exchange for a 35-year sentence. Carlesha was rescued by police and was returned to her family following the incident. Number 4. A foiled plot. In 2016, a pair of would-be robbers cleverly bypassed the alarm system at a bank in Praia Grande, Brazil, by wrapping themselves in tinfoil from head to toe. However, they failed to notice the bank's surveillance camera, which captured their every move and alerted employees at a central security office of the attempted robbery in progress. Police were called and the thieves fled the scene empty-handed, leaving behind a drill and some other tools that investigators believe they planned to break into the main safe with. One suspect, who was apprehended in a wooded area nearby, had a history of robbery arrests. When the story broke, police were still looking for the other suspect and believed that one or two more people may have acted as lookouts. Surprisingly, this wasn't the first time a Brazilian robber donned themselves in aluminium foil for criminal purposes. In a previous incident, a separate group of ATM robbers did the same thing to avoid setting off an alarm that was activated by body heat. Number 3. Banking machine blow-up. 29-year-old Dylan John Lewis was described as an absolute total moron in 2014 when his miserably botched attempt at robbing an ATM in Darwin, Australia, was captured on camera. The New Zealand national approached a money machine at a bank in the suburb of Winelli during the early morning hours and stuck a popsicle stick in the money slot to hold it open. He then took a gas canister that was rigged to a vacuum cleaner hose and placed a hose over the opening before releasing the valve and lighting a match. Naturally, an explosion ensued, and Lewis was blown backwards about 6.5 feet, 2 meters. His hat and shoes flew off his body before he landed on the pavement. Lewis stuck his hand into the slot to see if his plan worked, but fled the scene without any money, discarding his explosive device in a bush along the way. He suffered from some burns and shrapnel wounds, but was lucky his injuries weren't worse or fatal. The law soon caught up with him and charged him with arson. After being processed and released, he fled to New Zealand. Family members eventually convinced Lewis to return to Australia so he could face the charge. In court, his lawyer painted a sympathetic picture of a depressed and desperate meth addict who thought he had nothing to live for. On the other hand, prosecutors focused on what they described as a blatant disregard for public safety. Lewis pleaded guilty and received a 2-year prison sentence with all but 8 months suspended. Number 2. Caught red-handed. In 2011, 21-year-old Stephen Daniel failed to double-check his surroundings before robbing a convenience store in Snellville, Georgia, with a police officer standing just a few feet behind him. When he placed a bag on the counter and demanded money, the manager complied and started laughing. Within moments, everyone in the store burst into laughter, which can be faintly heard in surveillance footage of the hilarious robbery gone wrong. The officer, Lieutenant B.W. Brown, promptly arrested Daniel for the attempted robbery. He later told local station WSB-TV that officers had spoken with the suspect just minutes earlier outside the store. Daniel had apparently asked him for a ride somewhere, so it was especially surprising that he didn't realize it was a bad time to commit a robbery. Brown said that in 34 years of working in law enforcement, he had never encountered a situation like it before. In what he described as the easiest arrest of his career, he could tell what Daniel was about to do as he approached the counter with the bag in his hand. Brown thought, surely he's not dumb enough to do that with me standing right behind him. However, he continued to try and rob the place, and as he turned to leave, Brown was waiting there to arrest him. Number 1. A transparent thief. The clerk at the Circle K gas station in Belleville, Illinois, was extremely confused when a robber entered the store one morning in 2014 with a clear plastic bag over his head and demanded money. The thief also used a plastic bag to cover a sharp object in his hand. He made off with around $60, and because his disguise wasn't very convincing, it didn't take long for police to identify him as Patrick McGuire, a man in his late 40s with an extensive criminal history. McGuire's mile-long rap sheet already consisted of 14 felony convictions and 30 misdemeanors. He had also been on felony probation for his latest offense for just a few weeks when the robbery took place. While the rest of the world got a laugh out of the surveillance footage showing McGuire's not-so-clever disguise, federal authorities prosecuted the case aggressively. They pushed for a heavy punishment as part of an initiative to crack down on armed robberies in the region. The career criminal was ultimately sentenced to 15 years behind bars for his crimes. Would you rather be criminally charged for making a threat you didn't really mean during a moment of frustration, or suffer the embarrassment of appearing in widely circulated footage of your friend's shoplifting arrest? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.